What's the most hurtful thing someone has ever said to you? When I was young, my mum said holidays are better without me. You should do everyone a favor and kill yourself. Cut across for attention and down for results. A person who I called dad at 12 years old. No one will ever love you. Quote. That's the closest I ever got to actually killing myself because I truly believed these words. You're a stupid diaper-wearing cripple and the world would be better off without you. My middle school bully. For context, I have spina bifida and suffer from total incontinence due the nerves not working right. Yo, big shout out to Op for replying to and reassuring everyone. From my boss from my previous job. You're a headache to deal with. And I regret hiring you. I wouldn't surprise you don't give your girlfriend, friends, and family a headache. I was hired with this guy fully knowing I had little experience with the position I was hired for. I didn't lie during the interview. People like you are a statistic. Once you fail once you'll keep on failing. Head of school when I had to repeat a year in undergrad. Consequence of being naive and finding myself in a shitty abusive relationship. I refused to shake hands with him after my final performance and told him that no. I wouldn't go to graduation because I'd have to shake his hand. When he asked if I was attending. Also quite enjoyed sending copies of my 3 following degree certificates. And signing the letter drive. Prick. In spite of not being good looking. You are so good at studies. I don't know whether I must feel hurtful or not. Dad to 12-year-old me for forgetting to close a gate at the end of a 12-hour work day. You are a worthless piece of shit. The night before my wedding my mother drunkenly told me what a horrible, selfish daughter I was. That my wedding was a fucking circus. It was tented with cafe lights. And she can't believe what an awful selfish person I am. Because I had my wedding in the state I had lived in for 6 years and none of her friends, family decided to travel to it. Oh, and she decided she would throw her own reception the next week. The reason no one decided to come to the actual wedding. Which forced me to forego a honeymoon and instead travel to my hometown to attend her second reception. Followed closely for when I tried to hang myself at 11 in my closet and the rack and shelf fell. Instead and she told me, you are too fat to hang yourself. My first kid has Down syndrome. Some lady at work asked me when I was pregnant for number 2 if I would do prenatal testing this time around so I could get rid of it if it turns out like the first one. Exact words. Geez. I hated her. I have a daughter with an extremely complicated illness. Almost lost her to it twice when she was almost 3 and again 6 months later. In between. This was 15 years ago. I broke down and wept. Being so worried about her and also how distant my wife had become from me as well. After I settled down my wife told me that me crying like that had made me less attractive. My daughter is very stable now and I've been divorced for several years. My mum once said to me, I love you. You're my daughter. But I don't like you. I would never seek you out as a friend. I was 21 and it was 40 years ago. I will never get over that. It hurt so much. I had a theater teacher, director, pull me aside after a show that I totally spaced a cue line. It honestly was a super insignificant line. And the other actor improvised very well. And she straight up told me, putting you in this show was the biggest mistake I've ever made. You're a disappointment. She got fired 2 years later and went to jail for a couple of years for banging my best friend's cousin who was a 15-year-old student. I wonder if putting me in a play with one line was the biggest mistake she's ever made. Took my math book up to the teacher's desk with a question. I wasn't grasping it. He slams my book on his desk and asked me if I was stupid or what. Small town school about 30 years ago. If I ever run into that prick, I have a few things to show and tell him. You're ugly and underdeveloped. I was 10 years old and to this day it still gets to me. Edit to clear things up. This was said to me by a family friend's daughter. She was like 14. You'll never be loved or cherished because you look like me. You will never belong anywhere. No one cares about you enough to actually be there for you. You will be a burden to everyone else. From Dad to 11-year-old me after we argued about how he missed my birthday again. But looking back, I laugh because it seemed like he was projecting his own insecurities onto me. Lol, tears of joy. Locked in the bathroom. Naked. Just look at you. You're fat and ugly. Nobody will ever love you the way I do. Ex-husband. He was right. I married someone who does love me. Just not the way he loved me. Thank God. I had struggled with infertility for years. At my dad's funeral my step-sister said, "I bet you feel bad that you never gave him any grandkids. I cheated on you, and the only reason I'm telling you is because I'm pregnant." Quote.